let's stick to getting the afternoon session concluded quickly. Our strategic partners are KGTL, EQA, Hutchison Port, Pakistan, KBT, DP World, UN Global Compact Network Pakistan, TERIC, Greenbank, Shipping Private, Hutchison Ports, KICT, EVA, and NEMA. So, in the afternoon we have two talks. The first one is by Dr. Shujat Mubarak, and the second one by Mr. Atikur Rahman. So let's go to Dr. Shujat Mubarak, and he can take us away. Thank you, sir.
हम सबको नींद तो वैसे ही आ रही है. What I'll ask you is that close your eyes and imagine that you are in the 2035. So literally just close your eyes and imagine that you are in the 2035, and it's a time where there's a ship is being docked, unloaded, reloaded, and departed without human touch. So just try to visualize that there's a ship which is being docked, loaded, unloaded, and departed without any kind of human interaction. AI is scheduling all of those berth allocations. Blockchain is there to clear the custom. So आप सोचेंगे ship आ रहा है, autonomous ship खुद आपके पोर्ट पे डॉक हो रहा है. It's being unloaded, सामान आया, automatic custom से clear हुआ, and then the people, whoever are logistic providers, they're taking that luggage. Can you imagine that? Would it be the future of maritime logistics? आप क्या समझते हैं? What do you think?
No.
Right. Okay. Great. What's the reason?
Humans are important.
Humans are important, right? So obviously the humans are important. So, but where would be the humans in this scene?
Sitting behind.
Not sitting behind, working on the port.
Working on the port. Okay, great. Normally what in the maritime logistics vision 2035, and which is now they are considering that possibly by 2050, there would be some of the ports, and by 2035 there could be some of the model ports where the autonomous ship, I'll just give you an example of the ship that's already there. It would be coming. Obviously it's being controlled by the people who are sitting in the inlands. They are headquartered over there. It's controlled by them. The ship is there, and then it's being automatically what we call it unloaded by the robot cranes, which are being operated by the people, those who are sitting in maybe somewhere in the inland, in the headquarters, and then all of the custom is being processed without human interaction through the blockchain, all the scanners and all that. This is the kind of ideal scenario, this is the kind of ideal port which is being envisioned now. And you're very right that possibly this seems to be impossible sitting now, that there is the human on the port are very important. But let me just share with you that maybe in next 10 to 20 years, there would be some of the ports where we may not see the human on the port. Obviously, there will be the human which would be controlling all the machines, which would be analyzing all those things, which would be operating all those things, but they will not be on the port, right? So this is something which we are envisioning. Yeah. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are driverless cars. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, as I said yesterday also, the concept that human will be wiped out may not be true. The concept of that human will be wiped out may not be true. I can,
Just to take a pause. There's a big disclaimer that there is human can never be discounted in any of the system. The human can be repositioned
yes.
in the system. So that is a kind of an assumption. So this we have to keep in mind that obviously the human is that the human is the center of the, at least what we think, that the human is the center of this universe. So every activity is rotating, revolving around the human. Means that whatever we're doing, whatever logistics and everything, this is, but the position, the roles and tasks, capabilities, skills, requirement of the human would be changing. So that's the kind of disclaimer. Now you go. Please continue.
Sir, I would like to share the study carried out by a smart port, and I think it was an Italian port. During the course of my research, I have read that research paper. They actually analyzed the amount of HR. The data was around 15 years. So 15-year data actually showed in that the number of individuals involved in port that they showed, and then they actually revealed that when we started digitization, only for 1 and 1.5 years the amount of human number actually decreased, but now at 2024 they were fully digitized and the number of humans were actually the same which was the 15 years ago. So this is actually strengthening your point that human will be repositioned, job or skill level may change, but it cannot be said that humans will not be there on the port.
Alright, okay, so I think that we all are on the same page. Maybe our perspective is different, but obviously the human are the part of the system, but technology is going to reposition the role of the human.
Even as of now, if you take the example of SAPTL and KGPL, almost 30-40% port operations are already automated, and they were almost 2 to 3% were earlier, like 10 years before. So, if not 2035, I foresee by 2045 it will be there. Even at Port of Rotterdam, almost 70% port operations are now automated, humanless. Yes, control, supervisory, that's a separate thing, but at terminal, things are going to be fully automated very shortly.
Right. So it means that at least we can envision that if not in next 2-3 years, in our next 10 years, but maybe possibly next 10 to 15 years, we are going to see this smart ports concept where the most of the things and ideally all of the things will be automated. There will be the things, for example, the reason of this, why, now there could be a question that what's the need of the automation of all of the activities? What are the primary reasons? It's the cost or it's the safety or whatever. So अगर हम अभी के port operations को देखते हैं, so you could see that maybe the pending time and the process time and all that, and if you compare it with the digitalization, so when you're going to digitalize all those processes, this is the time, the processing time and all those things, this would be drastically reduced. ठीक है, अभी अगर आप अपने custom process को देख लें, those who are involved with it, you could see that how much time it is taking to clear something or in the process of custom. और जैसे अभी मैं उस दिन भी example दे रहा था, we had here the executives from the Karachi container terminal, जिन्होंने ये कहा कि in order to see कि एक container में कोई इस तरह की चीज़ तो नहीं है, they have to open all the container, get the products out of the container, और वो पूरा process करना पड़ता है. So once all the digitalization would be there, the blockchain would be there, so there is no need for opening the container, there is no need of the physical human interaction. Nevertheless, humans would be there on the back of all those operations. ठीक है, so this is going to happen maybe in next 10 years or 15 years, but this is what we call it the kind of future. Having that in mind, this was a kind of background which I just wanted to say. The present, where we are standing now, what is our position and how we are going to attain that kind of a distance. So presently, obviously, our port supply chains, port logistics is highly connected. Obviously, it's dependent upon the energies, dependent upon the geopolitics. We do have the digitalization in the various segments, but it's not digitalization as a package. We can see, as you mentioned, or maybe you could have seen in the various segments or various chunks, there's a digitalization. The processes have been automated, but there is no end-to-end digital transformation kind of a concept. Obviously, the organizations are the relevant stakeholders. They are digitalizing their processes, but it's a kind of a fragmented digitalization. It's not an end-to-end system-based digitalization. Sustainability pressure is increasingly growing. it could be enormous in coming 5 to 10 years, as I discussed with you, and there are new regulations coming in 2026. Those would be having some more stringent targets in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. And as we had a discussion, I think yesterday, that shipping companies and all those involved in the maritime logistics, they have to have more stringent compliance for operating in the sector. The third, this again, beside the climate, we had a discussion again that the cyber and political disruptions. So there are two different nodes, two opposite nodes, but obviously the both are affecting and both would be more detrimental. This could be more tricky in the future, and managing them would also be very important. So these are something where we are standing, what is our position, and what are the external factors which are affecting the landscape of this maritime logistics. Having that in mind, now let's see that why the future would look different. The point which I claimed first, कि इस तरह की there will be a complete smart board. What's the reason that why the future will not be as we are predicting now, or as we are seeing that it's not be the future? Number one reason, digital technology is getting now mature. Previously, there was a talk that these technologies would be having this kind of what we call it potential, but now we are realizing those potentials. Now those technologies are being implemented, those technologies are being adopted, those technologies are proving their worth, they're getting more mature, and the organizations, stakeholders, they're getting confidence. It means that there will be a substantial increase, or there could be exponential increase in the usage and adoption of those digital technologies. And there will be a lot of widespread adoption of those digital technologies, number one. We can already see that AI and IoT, even the small and microphones, they are adopting these kind of technologies. Number two, geopolitical shifts. I'll be discussing more in detail in the coming slides. Due to geopolitical shifts, there are new routes which are opening. I think that you would be aware of a few of the new routes. We'll be having a discussion shortly, and those new routes would definitely determine the fate of maritime logistics. So that's number two, which would affect the landscape and the shape of the future of maritime logistics. Number three, even more important, that the changing climate conditions would force the infrastructure redesign. We had a discussion on the first day and even on the second day, in the more detail, that this increasing magnitude and frequency of climate-led events are forcing not only the organizations but also to the ports and logistics sector to look into the resilience of their infrastructure. We need to redesign our infrastructure, keeping in view the future of these climate change and how they're going to impact. So there would be definitely there would be a kind of redesigning in terms of the warehouse type of the warehouse. We have to have vehicles and material handling equipment and all those things. We'll be discussing a bit on that. And there's a trade volatility in terms of changing international regulations, and these will demand more effective forecasting of the exportable products. This will demand more effective and precise forecasting of our different logistical requirements. Last but not the least is the skill gap. As the digital technology, they are getting mature, obviously their adoption would be increasing, but there's a possibility that the rate at which we are developing human capital for the sector, that would be lesser than the adoption rate. So there could be a deficiency, there could be kind of a gap in what is required and what is being produced. So we'll be building on these points. I'll be discussing that what's going to happen and how we are going to, or how we can navigate the future of maritime logistics in terms of technologies, in terms of human resource, and in terms of trends, right? So this is a kind of a backdrop of today's next maybe 30 minutes talk, and we will be discussing one by one that what are the technological developments and how we are going to navigate. Till now, if you have any questions, if you have any inputs, you are more than welcome. Anything if you want to add? Right, perfect. जी, अच्छा जी. अब हम चलते हैं. I start from the technology. As I told you that technology is maturing. The first thing which I showed you in the first slide was autonomous, possibly the remotely operated vessels. The vessel, there's a human-less vessels, there's no human on the vessel, which is being controlled by the people sitting in inland. And one of its examples is already there in the market. We could see this Yara Birkeland, one of the first autonomous electric container ship, which is being controlled by the people, by the experts who are sitting inland. It means that you don't need to be on board. You can just sit in somewhere in the inland and you can control this ship. It's completely autonomous and it can travel from wherever you want, from A place to B place, right? So this is one thing. So it means that if something is there already in the market and it has shown its feasibility, so there are a lot of companies are already there which are trying to produce, there are already a lot of projects which are trying to produce those kind of ships. Now what's happening, let me just share with you that this ship has the ability of predictive maintenance. This ship has the ability of rerouting itself based upon the weather data. So for example, if it gets disconnected from its headquarters because of the satellite something, and it could sense that the data is showing that maybe the weather is not right and the route is not feasible for the ship, so it can reroute its route accordingly based on the data, right? So that kind of capabilities it is possessing. Obviously, it's going to, and maybe not now, but if we are going to adopt it at the massive scale, it will have the massive impact on the cost in terms of the crew savings, in terms of the fuel, in terms of the insurance, and a lot of other things, right? But obviously, there's a risk that if there's an autonomous ship in the sea, and somebody has a cyber attack and they have hijacked your ship, so they don't need to do anything. There will be no what we call the sea pirates. Simply you have to sit in your office, you have to hijack the ship and simply redirect it to the port somewhere and it's being hijacked. So that's obviously one of the biggest threats, that cybersecurity kind of things. And the other thing is the regulatory harmonization. That could also, there's a discussion that these ships could be used by the drug dealers, by the people, those who are involved in the black market kind of things. So there could be some issues in that aspect as well. But the thing is that the concept is already here and a lot of companies are working, so it means that we may not be able to control this disruption would be definitely going to impact the maritime logistics. Anything if you want to add on it, you're more than welcome. Now let me put you in a scenario that imagine that it's 2032, your unmanned tanker loses satellite link with Pacific. It's containing 500 million worth of LNG. The challenge is that there's no backup crew. Rerouting fails due to the cyber breach. Now you have to take decisions in 15 minutes to prevent the collision risk. What you're going to do? And what kind of skill set does it require? कि आपका एक autonomous ship है, and it's a tanker which is there in the sea. It's autonomous completely. It has lost its link with the satellite. Obviously carrying a lot of value. It's 500 million worth of LNG. So what you're going to do? What kind of skill set does it require?
Eminent question.
G. Anybody?
Alternate satellite link.
Alternate satellite?
No other sort of intervention can do anything in this case.
Mhm.
AI for recovery and alternate satellite link.
Alternate satellite thing or AI for recovery. So what kind of skill set do you think that would require for that? Maybe anybody else? G? Digital twinning? So digital twinning would require sensors to send the data through satellites real time to you. So once you don't have the data, so obviously there will be a trouble.
I think technology has the solution to it. There should be some redundant systems or some countermeasures that if, for example, the ship is hijacked or any cyber attacks are done, there should be provision in the technology itself to counter it.
Mhm. So the technology could be the solution. So possibly there could be some, you say that could be kind of a system redundancy, or it could be a backup technology, or contingency plan, and all that. But what could be the skill set for that? It means that if you have humans, for example, if you have 4 employees, which employee would you ask to deal with that kind of issue? What kind of skills that employee should have in order to deal that kind of issue? A skill set.
In this case, sir, there will be no one on board, and communication is already. Even as of now, I have commanded 3 naval ships. We have satellite com, we have BPSS, we have other. So even as of now, we are having 2 to 3 alternate communication links. So what to talk of 2032, we will be having 5 to 6 alternate, like one US link. Even in like Pak India scenario, our ship will be having one link from China, one link US, one our own. So 3 options will be there. And in such scenarios, human intervention or 15 minutes response time, nothing else can be done. But in that time, 3 to 4 alternate, one set gone, automatically alternate ship. That is
Correct. So you're saying that this is the same kind of technological alternative, that there will be the 3-4 technologies which has to be there. But the skill set which is needed is the cyber resilience. Now you know that even the reason is that there are the cyber attacks which affect the 5 alternatives. For example, if you put in some of the data centers, for example, there were 5-6 different security checks. Then the alternative technologies were put, but in the cyber attack, they all had those all kind of technologies. So it means that putting a lot of alternative technologies may not work. Instead, you have to have the human resource, which is having the skill of the cyber resilience, that how they have to take care of those cyber resilience. That the satellite is there, the communication the link has been hacked, or it has been broken because of some cyber attack. So the number 1 is it's a cyber resilience, which is the right technical skill, and the cognitive skill would require, which is the crisis decision making. So if you have the right person which has the cyber resilience skill, the people, those who can deal with those kind of situations, and you can deploy them, and you have the right decision making, so obviously then you'll be able to better the situation. So the thing means that the point which I just want to make is that possibly again it's a kind of a reinforcement of the discussion which we are having, that the human would be there, even the human would be getting more important, but the role of the human would be changing. So previously the role of the human is that they are there on the board, but now the roles are different and the skills would be different. Likewise, now moving on, if you want to add something here, you're more than welcome, if anything. So this is just an example that what kind of the scenarios or what kind of situations we are going to face in the future. Number 2 is the digital twin 2.0. We talked a lot about digital twin, normal, which is digital twin, which is the physical virtual replica of any of the physical reality, and that can give you the real-time scenario or real-time view of any of physical object or process or whatever. Now there's a move, there's a shift from digital twin to digital twin 2.0. It means that presently some of the ports, including few of the ports in the UK, they are using digital twin, their own digital twin. For example, I had a discussion with you that we are developing a digital twin for the port of Dover. So, but that digital twin is, for example, for the port. Now, what would be the digital twin 2.0? There's a digital twin of the port. There's a digital twin of maybe the roads, digital twin of the air, digital twin of the railways, and those all digital twins have been federated by the digital twin of the digital twin. It's a master digital twin, which could be the digital twin 2.0, and you have the end-to-end value chain visibility. So, for example, even if you are a logistics service provider, you can get to know that whatever the product which you are having, what was the transportation carriers which this product was brought through, and even if it's linked with the supply chain, what are the various sources of this product's manufacturing, what was the supply chain or what was the value chain of that product, and even you can see that what kind of sourcing level and what was the compliance level in all of the supply chain processes. So simply you can, by sitting at the port, you can just look into the all upstream supply chain of that particular product. This is something which seems to be a dream, but a lot of companies and the people are working toward this digital twin 2.0, and if it is there, it will help a lot companies in order to reduce not only their carbon footprint, but also the visibility and traceability of the products. And it will also help to build better resilience, because it will help you to see that what is there in the upstream, what's going to be there in the downstream, and you can deploy your resilience strategies accordingly. Anything if you want to add on the digital twin, because I'm quickly moving toward number 3, which is a blockchain. But if you want to add anything, possibly let me just have your view on the digital twin in terms of its present application here in our system. Have you ever seen, या कोई आप में से बता सकता है कि any of our organization is working on the digital twin, or कोई develop कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं, any plan and all that? Or any understanding at the management level among the organizations about the digital twin? Anybody?
In the maritime industry, we do the simulation studies related to our navigation channel. So what we do the real-time simulation studies, but not in Pakistan. We have to go like Spain or somewhere for the real-time simulations to have the maneuvering of the vessels, especially in the case of LNG vessels.
Right. And even perhaps you know that there is an ocean digital twin already. So there are some of the countries that have developed a digital twin of their ocean, means that obviously it is in the context of some certain sector. That, for example, from the perspective of maritime, what is there down in the sea. So they have already so for example, they have a virtual replica of the sea, which seems to be maybe a very challenging, and sometimes it looks to be impossible to develop the digital twin of a sea. But from the sector's perspective, there are already digital twins in the Europe, which are being used, for example, by the marines, or by, as we were earlier discussing about this offshore windmills, that what is the topography in the sea, and all kind of things. So they are already there, digital twins, especially in the Europe and in the part of, in few of the organizations, in certain part of the sea in UK. The third technology, the point which I was just making is, the technology is getting mature. Previously, those technologies were being touted as the game changer, but now it's a time that those technologies are being actually adopted to change the game. So earlier, first I started with autonomous vessels. So I've just shown you, I've demonstrated that this is already there, and in maybe next 5 to 10 years there'll be a lot. But obviously those will require regulations. Then we talked about the digital twin, and possibly in coming years, digital twin, so the advanced ports would be moving from the digital twin 1.0 to digital twin 2.0, which would be more extended. And the third one is the blockchain technology. And there's a massive discussion of the blockchain's implementation in the customs system. The reason is that the customs processes, not only in the developing countries like us, like Pakistan or India or Bangladesh, these systems are complex everywhere in any part of the world, right? So these need to be not only improved, they need to be more agile, but also be more, transparent. So that's the reason that there are very comprehensive projects which are working on the adoption of the digital, on the blockchain technology in the customs sector, because the present, these trade lens kind of softwares, they are fragmented, kind of a disintegrated. Blockchain could offer a comprehensive industry-wide or even international-wide solutions. And there are few of the organizations which have already introduced the solutions. Let me just also share with you that in Ireland, there has been, the debate has reached to the parliament, certain quarters of the parliament, where almost the bills would be approved to adopt the blockchain in their customs process. So it means that if the countries are adopting this blockchain in the customs process, this would be a kind of opportunity for us to adopt the same technology in order to improve our processes, in order to reduce these redundancies in our processes. And if we adopt it, beside many other things, it's going to reduce the fraud, it's going to accelerate our trade finance. And I can share with you that since I have been interacting with a lot of our businessmen from our country, I've been meeting them a lot. So one of their complaint is that our export and import processes both are very sluggish. We have to deal with a lot of processes. We have to deal with a lot of, what we call hierarchies, beside other kickbacks and all those things. And those processes are one of the major hurdles in the way of exports and trade deficit as well. And even from the import perspective, for example, if you are importing something, being the manufacturer, so there are a lot of processes, a lot of things which are delaying, increasing that all what we call dwell time and increasing the cost of business. So this technology could be something which can really help us to improve our this custom process. But again, the issue is the legal harmony, that we have to have a very comprehensive system, legal system which can adjust or which can help us to adopt this blockchain technology. Right. There's another very interesting thing. Possibly most of you, or maybe some of you at least, would have heard, that is the green maritime corridors, and these are being developed as a consequence of growing emphasis on the greenness and the decarbonization in the shipping industry. And there's already one green corridor there, which is between Singapore to Rotterdam. This green corridor is for the ammonia ships. You can just explore more about it on the internet, and you can see. So it means the green corridor means that this corridor is only dedicated for the ships which are using a certain level of the green energy. So the other ships cannot use those routes. Now there could be kind of opportunity for us that if we can, or maybe if we can collaborate and develop those kind of ships, or maybe I'm not sure that if we do have the capacity, but at least if we can develop a kind of a consortium, or maybe we can have the part of that industry and capitalize on to this green corridors, this can really help us to boost our exports as well. So this second one is this green corridor approach. Especially, I've seen that India has been doing a lot in contributing to or capitalizing on this green corridor, and they are trying to get on board with few of the organizations from Denmark and from Norway in order to capitalize on this green corridor. One more thing about the green corridor is that if you are using the green corridor, you can have a certain carbon credits. You can be the part of that emission trading system, and this can even help you to make better outlook in terms of your carbon emissions. Right, anything from the green corridor? Right, okay, moving on to, but obviously it does have challenges from its own perspective, that it's not easier. First of all, there's a lot of pressure from the conventional fossil fuel driven ships that why the green corridors, what the introduction of the green corridors certainly would be, it would be kind of a detrimental for the existing companies, but obviously this is something which the people are envisioning in the future, that there will be massive prevalence of the green corridors in order to phase out the conventional fossil driven ships. Now the problem is that as earlier discussed with you, and maybe I think one of the things which we have discussed throughout this session, that was about the climate adaptation and resilience. And one thing which I discussed with you, it was that we need to adapt to the changes. And we could see that the sea levels are rising. So the point is that the existing infrastructure of ports, existing infrastructure of logistics, existing infrastructure of possibly warehousing, that may not be going to work in the future. And that's the reason that we can see that Japan is coming up with a floating container terminal. They have already commissioned research, and they have come up with, at a certain level, they were very successful kind of a pilot project where they've demonstrated the floating container terminal, and now they're going for what we call it at the broader level, at the massive scale, to have that floating container terminal. So it would be a kind of a game changer for the countries, especially like Maldives and Singapore and Japan, which are smaller in size, and they have more water, more surrounded by the sea. So that would be a game changer for them. And there's another thing, what we call it the amphibious cargo. जो आपने गाड़ी देखी होगी जो कि पानी में भी चलती है और रोड पे भी चलती है. So that उस गाड़ी को उस तरह की सिस्टम को we call amphibious cars. Our amphibious cargo is the containers. You know, क्योंकि अगर हमारे floods, rains ये सारी चीजें बढ़ रही होंगी, so we need to have that kind of ability or capability in our cargo or in our cars, in our maybe logistic system, that those would be able to be handled in that kind of situation. So the concept of the amphibious cargo is already there, and there are now yards which are called the flood-prone zones or flood-proof zones. So, for example, you have certain containers which can be there even if there is an extreme flood, which can be there, which are completely safe even in case there is a lot of rain and all that. So that's again concept being developed in the countries like Malaysia. Again, it's already there. Bit is there in Singapore, especially these ASEAN countries and South or Asian Pacific countries. They're developing this concept. In fact, partly this is already there, and I think that Pakistan we can also learn from it, especially given the extreme weather forecast in coming years in certain part where there will be extreme rain. So maybe we can develop something on the same parameters. So that could be that kind of infrastructure will not only be used for the trade purpose, but that can also be used for the humanitarian purpose. कि अगर आपके सिंध में कहीं पे बारिशें हो रही हैं, and you have the cars, you have the vehicles which could be used in the water and on the land, so you can use them in order to rescue your people. So those could be used for the humanitarian logistics as well.
Dr. Can I just interrupt for a short? We will keep the interaction minimum because we have to keep the time. There is another program going on, so the DG will only, the chief guest will only come for a short time. So interaction को बाद के लिए रखें और so that we can quickly move on to.
Yeah, so that's the reason that you could see that I am more than my natural tone. Yeah. So although to me it is seeming to be कि अभी हम जमैका वो खुतबा पढ़ के आए, seems to be very monotonous, लेकिन इसीलिए मैं I'm not getting more into the interaction. So चले अभी मैं और स्पीड पकड़ लेता हूँ. This is something which is again could be a game changer, and हम कभी I'm not sure that this was an anecdote or it was reality or whatever, लेकिन हम लोग सुनते आए हैं, हमें पता नहीं ये बताया गया था कि Russia invaded Afghanistan to get the hot waters of Pakistan and India, but now the things are happening the other way around. That part of the northern sea route, जो कि पहले ice और glacier से भरा हुआ था, because of the climate change, it's melting, and obviously the new routes are emerging, or possibly by 2030 जो छोटे boats हैं, जो small vessels हैं, उस route पे चलना शुरू कर देंगी. So if that route would be activated, that is going to have it's obviously going to cut the time, Asia-Europe trade time by 10 to 15 days, which is almost I think 1/3 or 2/3 of the time. ये पूरा map मैंने आप इसको possibly after this session or maybe whenever you have time, आप इसको explore करके you can read more about it. कि ये जो red वाला route है, यहाँ से ये blue की तरफ shift हो जाएगा. जब इस तरफ शिफ्ट होगा, so जो स्विस कैनाल में आपकी जो 8% ऑफ द वर्ल्ड ट्रेड जो आ रहा है, उसका 2/3 शिफ्ट हो जाएगा इस रूट की तरफ. एंड दिस इज नॉट फार. ये 2030 से ये ग्रेजुअली इसमें स्मॉल वेसल चलना शुरू हो जाएंगे. बाय 2035 मे बी द मीडियम साइज कंटेनर्स एंड मे बी बाय 20 or 30 years ये रूट प्रॉपर्ली एक्टिवेट हो जाएगा. दिस इज गोइंग टू हैव a very positive impact on the economies like UK, Ireland, Belgium, that northwestern side of economies, northwestern European economies. Those would be having a very positive impact, whereas the other side of the Europe, that would be having a negative impact. So the point is that we have to plan now that how we can capitalize on this route, number one. Number two, this would require active regulation. UK, this comes a lot under the Russian water. There would be a lot of sanctions and those kind of things. So I think that maybe this is the time, if we want to be more proactive, that we can discuss at the policy level, at the national level, at the organization level, that maybe how we can capitalize on this route in the next 10 to 15 years, what could be the certain regulation, what could be our national policy. For example, if that route is activated by 2030, so whether we are going to capitalize on it, if yes, what would be our approach, what would be our strategy, what kind of regulation we need to have, and how we are going to deal with that. So that it is very important. So possibly this is again another a kind of a disruptive event, which is maybe a development which will change the landscape of the global maritime logistics. Sorry. Then we have already discussed about the AI-driven demand sensing, but the point which I am now making is that technology is getting mature. So it means that the AI, where it was being introduced as a game changer, now it's already there in place in the certain levels, and in future AI would be effectively used for the demand-driven demand forecasting and demand-driven sensing. Means we could also already see in America, for example, कि satellite imagery को customers की demand, production, harvesting, sowing वो सारे data को combine करके they forecast the demand and they can get to know कि अगले साल wheat या crops की कितनी yield होगी, उसमें से हमारी existing local demand कितनी है, export हमें कितनी करनी है, उस export को cater करने के लिए हमारी maritime logistics needs कितनी होंगी. So this can really, this all can be done, and this is already being done with the help of this AI-driven demand forecasting kind of thing. So possibly we can also see that how we can capitalize on it, but in the future this is going to be more robust. I'm not putting you in the scenario, obviously. I'll just, in the best interest of time, I'm just moving on. Then there's the cyber security. Now, given all this in the mind, the problem is, and somebody here in one of the sessions rightly pointed out, that going forward, one of the most required skill would be your cyber security related skills. And possibly, almost everybody must have some basic cyber hygiene. So, in fact, most of the organizations which are adopting technology in the maritime, or even those who are the logistics service providers, they have already made it mandatory that all of human capital or human resource must have at least certain level of the cyber security related information. There are cyber security kind of certifications that you know that how to prevent your data, how to manage your data and all those things. So that is number one, it's essential. Plus, some of your human resource must have the skills related to advanced response protocol, which we call it, in terms of some cyber attacks, in terms of there's something risky attacks from maybe outside or within the company. So that would be going to get more importance in the maritime logistics. क्योंकि technology जिस भी industry में आएगी, if there's a digital technology, so the need for the cyber security will increase, and so is the maritime industry. So obviously, cyber security key skills and those would be in demand in coming years. Again, this would be the slide. At least please allow me to interact with this. इसमें हमें क्योंकि थोड़ा सा I need your interaction क्योंकि this is something which is related to all of us. Now what is happening? Technology का pace change हो रहा है. We are adopting the technology. We are trying to plan to the technology, but the point is that if technology is being adopted, though that technology will require certain kind of skill sets. Now the point is that whether we are developing those skill sets or not. So if we are not developing, so there will be a gap between what is required skill set and what we are developing, and that can create what we call it, or simply it could be a kind of a counterproductive for organizations. So we have a lot of cases, countries like Sri Lanka, where they wanted to adopt new technology in the port and maritime logistics. They did adopt, but the problem was they didn't have the right mix of human resource. They need to import the people from the different countries, which increased their cost, which increased their compliance, and obviously that became a kind of a counterproductive. वो जो technology में adopt करनी थी efficiency के लिए, agility को बढ़ाने के लिए, उस technology ने उनके लिए problems create करना शुरू कर दिया. Obviously that was one of the reasons that Sri Lankan port operations, some of the port operations were not working properly. तो अब technology कौन सी skills हैं जो चाहिए होंगी? The first is what we call it the digital and analytical skills. Obviously everybody who is in the industry they have to know, they must know that how to read the data and how you can take the decision based on the data, and especially those who are the high ups in the industry, even they have to know that what is the data telling them and how they can take the decision based on the data, number one. Number two, what we call it the climate resilience literacy. And what could be, now climate resilience literacy is that we were talking here about the carbon credits, we were talking about here the greenhouse gas emissions, we were talking here about the adaptation and a lot of other things. So at least हमें सबको, whatever those who are there in the maritime logistics industry, or even in the other industries, we have to have a basic understanding of the climate resilience related skills, climate resilience related whatever capabilities. Okay, now there's another thing, but I'm not getting more into detail of that, but there's this kind of scenario planning. Now the scenario planning is not the skill of the human resource, but this is the skill of the system which is giving to the people, and now the people or the human resource can put their decisions in order to reach on the conclusion. So आपके पास जब digital twin होता है, तो what the digital twin can provide you, it can give you a certain scenario that कि ये आपके पास situation in the future. Now this is your capability, कि you can, how you going to capitalize that scenario to take the decision, right? So how you're going to plan that scenario, how you're going to capitalize that scenario. For example, if there's a geoeconomic situation is changing, if your AI is telling you that the demand would be increased of the certain products, how it's going to impact your business, what the decision you're going to take. So obviously you need to have those kind of skills as well. But putting last but obviously not the least, it is what we call it the cross-system thinking. The people in the one domain will not be sufficient. Maybe one person has to have the understanding and knowledge of the other domain as well. In terms of, for example, if somebody is from resilience side, there's a possibility that the captain of the ship has to have the understanding of the cyber laws. They have to have the understanding of the cyber resilience or something else, right? So last but not the least is the human in the loop. So all of the conclusion is that human has to be in the loop in terms of the judgment. So I've just understood that I have to conclude the session. Anyway, the point here, okay, if you're not taking human in the loop, if you're not developing the human, this all the drive toward technology, this all the adoption of technology would be, it can prove to be counterproductive. जब तक हम human resource को prepare नहीं करेंगे, obviously ये हम नहीं कर पाएंगे. और human resource के 3-4 मैंने आपको aspects बता दी. You need to have these basic essential level of the cyber security. This is in सब के ऊपर the point which we discussed on the first day is important. It's a kind of circling point, that is what we call cognitive flexibility. अगर आप अपने लोगों को नई चीज़ें सिखा देंगे, but they don't have the ability to unlearn the old things, so obviously it will not work, right? So they have to have the cognitive flexibility. If then you're just skilling them, upskilling them, so obviously that's going to work. And that's it, I think, right? So thank you so much. I think that I can keep over here.
Thank you, Officer. We will not take any questions right now. Mr. Atikurman is the Economic and Financial Analyst. He's Chairman of the Corporate Advisory Committee of the Bharatiya School of Maritime and Applied Sciences. He's on the advisory boards of many universities and medical institutions. He is Solo Award winner, I Am the Change. And countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Azerbaijan and Ethiopia have recognized his services for the growth of trade between these countries and Pakistan. So we are very honored to have this distinguished speaker today. So please would you take the podium.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All distinguished guests here. Respected Mr. Majid Aziz sir, my mentor, Shujat Mubarak sahab, Yaka sahab, Dr. Asif Inam sahab, Mohsin bhai, and of course Dr. Samina Kidwai, all my colleagues and the team members in the CAC of Maritime. I know the shortage of time, बकरा आखिर में ज़िबा वही होता है जो अपना होता है, तो मैं अपना हूँ, आखिर में ज़िबा होता है, तो आई एम प्रिपेयर्ड टू सेक्रीफाइस। आई हैव बीन गिवन 10 minutes. Out of those 10 minutes, 5 minutes general talk and 5 minutes the paper which I have written and been accepted by Dr. Asif Inam. I will shorten that paper to 2 paragraphs. The first thing is this, that we have lot of anxiety in our economy. And we are passing through a period that we are passing through economic resilience. Maritime plays a very, very vital role. We have to work hard day and night for the impact of maritime in our country. I'm sorry to say, in the past, the maritime sector has been very much neglected. $100 billion economy is lying barren. So now, since we are working, we all are working, so we seek your cooperation in this regard and want to bring you to the limelight that we have a challenge and we have the responsibility to overcome the maritime problems and the God-gifted big maritime coastline and everything what God has given us, the ocean and everything in the shape of maritime, the seafood, Pakistan produce and everything, we have to seriously work for it. Ladies and gentlemen, coming back to what I have written, just 2 paragraphs. One of the long-standing issues Pakistan faces is port congestion. Majid sir will totally agree with me, which causes significant delays and raises operational costs. To address this, the development of smaller scale mini seaports across the country is necessary. These facilities, when linked to major ports via national logistic grid, could greatly ease congestion, improve cargo flow, and enhance maritime trade efficiency. Mini seaports are vital not only for the smooth functioning of the port system but also for supporting regional economies, facilitating trade with neighboring countries and landlocked regions, and diversifying Pakistan's shipping routes. In addition to easing congestion, mini seaports would contribute significantly to local economic development. They would contribute significantly to local economic development. They would create jobs, encourage entrepreneurship and support both import and export on a localized scale. However, developing these ports will require substantial investment in infrastructure, including berthing facilities, storage areas, connecting roads. Last but not the least, few lines from the last paragraph. Private sector involvement can be particularly rewarding. Investment in mini seaports, terminals, berths, and storage infrastructure not only addresses capacity constraints but also improves overall operational efficiency, making it a viable and profitable business venture. Ladies and gentlemen, if I continue, I'll keep on going, because this is a very, very favorite subject and very near to my heart, the mini seaports and the requirement and the essential need of mini seaports in Pakistan, especially in Karachi. With this, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege and opportunity to be on the roster at the Bahria University Maritime. Thank you, sir.
Director General, Bahria University, Karachi campus. He will join us soon, and then we will begin the closing ceremony with the tilawat and the Sharif. Mr. Talda, please, words from Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار والفلك التي تجري في البحر بما ينفع الناس وما أنزل الله من السماء من ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها وبث فيها من كل دابة وتصريف الرياح والسحاب المسخر بين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون. तर्जुमा। बेशक आसमानों और ज़मीन की पैदाइश में, रात और दिन के बदलने में और समंदरों में किश्तियों का चलना जो लोगों को फ़ायदा पहुंचाने में, आसमान से पानी बरसाकर मुर्दा ज़मीन को ज़िंदा करने में और ज़मीन में हर किस्म के जानवर पहलाने में और हवाओं के चलने में, आसमान और ज़मीन के दरमियान बादलों को मुसख्खर करने में अक़ल वालों के लिए निशानियाँ हैं। सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम। दुरूद शरीफ। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व अला आलि मुहम्मद कमा सल्लैता अला इब्राहीम व अला आलि इब्राहीम इन्नका हमीदुम मजीद। अल्लाहुम्मा बारिक अला मुहम्मद व अला आलि मुहम्मद कमा बारकता अला इब्राहीम व अला आलि इब्राहीम इन्नका हमीदुम मजीद। सुब्हान रब्बिका रब्बिल इज़्ज़ति अम्मा यसिफून व सलामुन अलल मुरसलीन वल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will provide a short overview of the Summer School 2025. Like we've been going through this program for the last 5 years, and this was the 5th cohort. We have 2 trainers, and with the announcement we had 90 plus participants respond to it. 62 were online. In the program we've had our strategic partners KGTL and PQA, and then we had several other sponsoring institutions. Out of the 90 participants, we are a large number, a major proportion of them came from the industry. And then we had representation from the academia and also some young alumni and students. Our 2 main resource persons, Hubert Schwarzman. I'm not going to read his profile because by day 5, I'm sure all of you know who Hubert is, and he's been coming to us every year for the last 5 years, so he's almost familiar with us and we with him. So Hubert is an academic, and he comes from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and we just discovered that he was a seaman at one time, and then now he's turned into an academic. So he has shared his knowledge and experience with the house in the 5 days. Then we have Dr. Shujat Mubarak. Dr. Mubarak has been a very well-known figure in the academics of Pakistan. He currently represents, he's an associate professor at the Harriet University in Edinburgh, Scotland. He's very well known and well respected in his circles and is a visiting professor in the Copenhagen Business School, Denmark. And obviously he has many credentials, several books to his credit, over 100 publications, etc. He enjoys also collaboration with international and high-ranking universities. The 5 days, both the main resource persons have taken the August House through many different areas of expertise, and they are listed here. We've been introduced to maritime trade and logistics, management, port operations, challenges, technological challenges, etc., and human resource, green innovations, etc. Summing up the talks for the next decade, we have been talking about decarbonization, digitalization, supply chain resilience. We've also talked about the importance of collaboration, how green infrastructures can be scaled up, how adaptive the business models should be, what the ports can do and how they can evolve in terms of integrated logistics, converting them into logistic hubs, etc. And the importance of stakeholders, prioritization and sustainability and innovation. We've had over 10 talks from the main resource persons and 13 general and specialized talks. One was a recorded online talk by Matthias Bach from MACN. We've had the pleasure of hearing Mr. Rajpur, who's chairman of the Pakistan Ship Agents Association. Then we've had Mr. Naved Qureshi. We've had Mia Zahid Hussain Saab. We've had Mr. Fasih Haider. And just now we've had Mr. Atikur Rahman as our very honored speakers. They also spoke to us on a podcast, which will be made available to all the participants, the links, once it's available. For the participants, there's been a range of people who have participated and presented. We've had public sector institutions, the industry, public and private enterprises, faculty, alumni, and researchers. And just to name a few, I've just listed these down as a group. So I think it's been a very well represented group of people and interesting deliberations throughout the 5 days. The focus of the presentations and networking and discussions have been on innovation, blockchain, IoT, digital twin, big data, sustainability, resilience, recovery, business processes, green shipping, and opportunities, challenges, and linkages between industry and academia. So with that, I will now ask the two main resource persons to take a minute, if they may come on the podium, to please present how they felt. So not more than 1 or 2 minutes, but please welcome to the podium again, one more time. And Hubert, I think if you would like to go first, and then Dr. Shujat. Thank you.
So now I have to stand still. All right. First of all, thank you all for a really valuable week. I enjoyed it, except one day due to, let's say, the challenges of the Pakistan kitchen. I have to put on my I think that we learned a lot about the developments in Asia. We learned a lot about the developments in Pakistan with all the speakers and all the different perspectives that were made during not only but also the other sessions. And thank you for all the questions and comments that you gave throughout the week. It makes it, these different perspectives made it certainly a worthwhile event, this 5th edition of the Summer School. I think it also became very clear that we had a number of challenges for the future with regard to sustainability, but also the challenge of resilience, and also the safety and security. They are not easy, these challenges, but and they're also complex, costly, and demanding. They will not be solved in a matter of days or weeks, not even months, but I think they will be solved in decades, to decades to come. And I think that it is the job, responsibility of schools and universities like Bayer University, like Harriet Watt University in Edinburgh, or the University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam, to educate the next generation of young professionals who will make work of those challenges and who will work on those challenges. Also, it is the mutual responsibility of schools and universities in very close cooperation with the industry, and it's good to see so many people of the industry, but also the regulators, the government, and other international institutions to find and implement viable solutions for, I think that was a very good remark, people, planet, and profit. Thank you again, till next time, and of course a special welcome. This is the 5th edition to Dr. Weiss in Islamabad, Dr. Asif in Bayer. We started 5 years ago on a very small scale, and it's good to know that we've come so far. Thank you again. And finally, thank you for presiding this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just start with one of the verse of Allama Iqbal which we read here in Delhi University. And ये है कि जो आलम इजाद में है साहिब इजाद हर दौर में करता है तवाफ उसका ज़माना. और अल्लामा इकबाल ने, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई मस्ट अप्रिशिएट द लीडरशिप ऑफ Delhi यूनिवर्सिटी, जिन्होंने इतना ज़बरदस्त ये अल्लामा इकबाल का शेर यहाँ पे लिखा. और the meaning of this particular verse is that those whoever are the inventors, innovators, those who are learning to innovate, obviously all of the world, all of the countries will be around them, and we could see. And so is obviously the maritime logistics sector. And their maritime logistics sector is obviously facing a lot of challenges which need a lot of innovations. And on that note, I think I must congratulate the Delhi University top management, definitely rector, DG Karachi campus, principal business school, principal maritime school, and all of the other stakeholders for taking this wonderful initiative, which is a step towards innovation. So, especially, I must thank you to the DG Saab, Dr. Liaquat Saab, Dr. Asif, and all your faculty members which were working day and night to make this wonderful summer school happen. And obviously, I must appreciate and congratulate all these sponsors which felt the need of the innovation and something to upskill our human resource. Right, so thank you so much. And this is something very, kind of a ray of hope that yes, our industries and academia is on the right path. Now moving forward, what I think that kind of initiatives should be, they are the beginning of toward the big goal. And what I think that I'm looking forward from the Delhi University and from the academia to take that kind of measure and that kind of trainings to upskill our human resource. I also discussed with Dr. Liaquat about kind of a collaboration with our university and with Delhi University and possibly with the other universities to develop a kind of a consortium to undertake the research. We do have the funds. There are the funds which are allocated from the developed countries from the platform of the British Council, British Academy, and they are the UK Research and Innovate. So definitely we'll be discussing that how we can collaborate, how we can go for the innovation, and how we can develop not only the maritime logistics but also to the other areas of business. So personally, I think that this is something, a step towards strengthening the national and international economies. Thank you so much again.
Admiral Mohammed Zubair Shafiq, Lali Riaz, military retired, Director General, Karachi Campus, Bahrain University. Sir, it's a great honor that you could spare the time to be with us for these final moments. I would request you for your concluding remarks, sir, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. It is good to see very familiar faces of my past service background, where I have been serving Karachi Port Trust and other places. And obviously I am here and addressing a very learned audience, those who have really profound kind of professional excellence and background. I will not be taking much of the time because I have to go and join the convocation rehearsal as well. But it is very heartening and encouraging to see the kind of debrief which has been done by the two learned and honorable guest speakers and the other speakers who were here to educate you on the subject. I think it's well into the, I would say, groove. It's 5th chapter of the summer school, and we have been really, in a way, contributing to make a link between the industry and the academia and the subject matter experts on this in this field to kind of do a handshake, and whosoever joins this event, I would ask them to kind of, whatever the takeaways they have gathered from this place, from this session, please try to kind of develop your procedures, develop your processes, and keep this background knowledge into your mind, how to improve the system and how to meet the future challenges which have been identified during the discussion. This event wouldn't have been possible without the support of all the participants and all the sponsors who have really very graciously and very mindfully contributed in making this event happen. And obviously the two guest speakers who traveled all the way from Holland and UK to come here and educate the audience. Once again, I would like to extend my profound thanks and gratitude to all the sponsors, all the participants and the learned speakers for sparing their very valuable time and making this event a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Done? Thank you. एक सेकंड आपका हाथ आ रहा है। एक्सक्यूज मी, हेलो, हाथ आ रहा है। थैंक यू। थोड़ा सा बैक हो जाएं आप लोग। और 7 8 Thank you. आप थोड़ा सा बैठ जाइएगा, हाथ आ रहा है। हेलो थैंक यू। Thank you.
And Mr. Hubert Schwarzma, please receive your memento for this year's corporate training, Summer School 2025.
Thank you.
Dr. Shujat Malik, sir.
Sir.
Principal, Beharia School of Maritime and Applied Sciences, Dr. Asif Inam. Principal, Beharia Business School, Dr. Liaquat. I now request the two principals to please present the memento to the chief guest, Rear Admiral Muhammad Zubair Shafiq, Hilal Imtiaz, military retired, Director General, Beharia University Campus,
Honorable Rear Admiral Muhammad Zubair Shafiq, Hilal Imtiaz, Director General of Karachi Campus, Majid Ali Saab, Atiq Rahman Saab, Hubert Schwarzma, Dr. Shujat Mubarak, and our esteemed guest participants, and especially Dr. Liaquat and Commodore Mohsen. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, let me clear that I was strictly asked not to miss any names. So just because of that reason, I am reading the manuscript. Okay. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to each resource person for generously sharing their expertise and insight throughout this summer school. We extend our appreciation to Hubert Schwarzma in-depth sessions on green corridor and blue innovation, which energize us each morning. We also thank Dr. Shujat Mubarak for effectively teaching theory and practices across multiple topics with his engaging style. Additionally, we are grateful to speakers like Mohammad Ali Rajput, Mathias Beg, Mishada Miraj for their timely perspective on port operations, anti-corruption compliance and green shipping. Special thanks to go to our distinguished guest, Mr. Naveed Qureshi, Miaz Zahid Hussain, Sayyid Tanveer Ahmed, Ms. Ikra Irshad, Captain Baba Malik, Commander Dr. Zubair bin Junaid, Dr. Muhtasim Billah, Captain Nawaz Mirza, Mr. Fasih Haidar, and Mr. Atiq Rahman. Their contribution enriched our understanding of risk management, lean operations, digitization, and sustainable trade. This summer school would not have been possible without the generous support of our sponsors and industry partners. We extend our thanks to our strategic partner, Karachi Gateway Terminal Limited, Port Qasim Authority, Karachi Port Trust, TAREC, South Asia Pakistan Terminal, DP World, Karachi International Container Terminal, Green Park, EWA, Global Compact Network, Pakistan, and all academic and corporate allies who have invested in our vision for a sustainable maritime future. I must acknowledge Mr. Majid Aziz and Mr. Atiq Rahman for helping and making this summer school a success.
The administrative support from Berry University ensured seamless logistics, venue management and participant service, which is greatly appreciated. A special note of thanks goes to the organizing committee led by Professor Liaquat, Commodore Mohsin Hayat Malik, Professor Shamsi, Dr. Mohtasim Billah, Dr. Samina Katwai, Dr. Idris, Ms. Alia Azmat Ali, Dr. Sana Majid, Dr. Shah, Mr. Arif Ansari, and Mr. Sajid Mahmood. For their meticulous planning and coordination, I just forgot to take the names of Dr. Mustafiz and Dr. Munazza and Dr. Rao. We also acknowledge the efforts of the administrative teams from the various School of Maritime and Applied Sciences and various business schools. Their dedication turned this ambitious program into a reality. Additionally, we appreciate the behind-the-scene contribution of the Beria Medical team and their technical hospitality and security staff who ensured every session runs smoothly. Your unwavering support allowed participants and speakers to focus entirely on learning and collaboration. To all attendees, student, faculty, industry professionals and maritime enthusiasts, thank you for your active engagement, thoughtful questions and collaborative spirit. Your enthusiasm during networking days and discussion underscored the importance of community in advancing maritime trade and logistics. We hope that the knowledge you have gained here inspires new initiatives, research projects and partnership in Pakistan's maritime sector. As we conclude this week of discovery and dialogue, let us carry forward the ideas, connection and inspiration we have gathered together. May the lessons learned guide our pursuit of blue and green innovation in Pakistan's port and supply chain. On behalf of the Beria School of Maritime and Applied Sciences and Beria Business School, I thank you all once again and wish you protective endeavor ahead. Thank you very much.
So, moving on the stage, I now request the chief guest and all the dignitaries and everyone who can come on the stage or line up